Life has taught me that, our journeys can be unpredictable, unexpected, but I genuinely believe we are often shown the way that our life should unfold. We just have to be kind of courageous to see the knockbacks as an opportunity to change direction. Because I thought, how cool would it be to help people, inspire them in the moment to achieve things that they physically do not believe is possible. And that's what I experienced, and I thought, how cool. So I had to break the news to my mum that I was actually going to use my degree to teach aerobics, which didn't go down that well. But I thought, change of direction. So I did that. I got a job in a leisure centre, absolutely loved it. But all the different types of qualifications, nothing would make me happier than being amongst a group of people that were trying to see whether they could be a better version of themselves physically. And I had so much fun and I loved it. It's interesting to me that not all leaders or not all leadership that I've ever seen came from people who had leadership in their title.
Yes.
Because I think everybody is a leader.
Yeah.
And I'd seen really admirable qualities in the way that peers, people that I'd worked with, people that are younger than me, older than me, had shown me. And I thought, you know what? The way they make people feel heard, or they somehow make you feel like you're the only person in the room. I want to be able to make people feel like that. If you look after the people will be happy in their work. They will then be happy looking after your customers. When your customers are happy, they're happy to spend money, and they will trade that experience for loyalty. And when they show their loyalty in return sales, the profit takes care of itself. So it was always people, customer, profit.
Hello and welcome to Meet Your Inspiration podcast with Meri and Rich. Here we're talking about inspiration, motivation and empowerment. Our guests are ordinary people who became extraordinary, and we're sharing their stories. We want to empower you to become the person you want to be, to go beyond your dreams.
Today our special guest is Beth Turner. Beth is from
Conversations Unlimited.
And it's a great privilege to have you with us. Thank you, Beth, for coming to see us today.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Today we will talk about public speaking, communication skills, and most important, how to be comfortable when we need to talk to other people, and especially, as we mentioned earlier with you, the difficult conversations. And we had the privilege to be on your latest presentation at Rookie CEO, I think it was, for the difficult conversations, isn't it?
Yeah, it was interesting. I gave that audience 3 options because I'm a great believer in when you get an opportunity to speak to anyone, your job is to serve. And I thought, is it my place to decide what that community of people would like to hear? And I thought, it's nothing better than to ask. So I sent out a poll to the community and said, I'm going to have a speaker slot. Which of these 3 things? And I think it was how to prepare your content before you speak, mastering the art of small talk, or how to handle difficult conversations. And people voted.
Difficult conversations
won, which was interesting. That's what the rookie leaders thought would be the outcome, but it was.
I'm not surprised because nowadays people struggle to have a communication face-to-face, let alone the difficult ones. And they're not only at work, they are everywhere. Even sometimes, if I must be honest, I'm finding it difficult if you need left that at home, you can have a difficult conversation or with your teenager child. But it's the same. Something happened wrong, or is in the shop, or it's a restaurant, and you need to voice it and say. And very often you will be stopped. But stay with us, and you will listen a lot about that. But now I want, obviously, to present you to our listeners and whoever, or our audience.
Definitely an audience.
Because my favorite part, how we met our guests, because our guests are all extraordinary. It was a Rookie CEO, as we mentioned, network event. Beth was, she was having a presentation over there. I think it was more about the public speaking, the one that
the first one was feel the fear and speak anyway.
Yeah, and I absolutely fall in love the way how you present, how you talk, and nothing a lot, nothing less, but obviously you are expert in that.
And sometimes you feel the fear.
I do feel a lot of fear.
But you speak anyway.
And
You've got to respect that.
I'm trying, yes. And obviously came to you. You were very welcoming. And today you are here. Mm-hmm. So we are really keen to hear about your story, inspirational story. And tell us how your career journey developed after the secondary school, let's say.
Some people think that people who are happy doing the work that they do, and I wouldn't change what I do for the world. And I think some people imagine that was always going to be the thing that you did. You knew from school you were always going to be, in my case, a communication coach. That is so not what I had in mind. And life has taught me that, our journeys can be unpredictable, unexpected, but I genuinely believe we are often shown the way that our life should unfold. We just have to be kind of courageous to see the knockbacks as an opportunity to change direction. And when I left school, went to university, that was, I was the first one in our family to go to university. That was a big thing. And I didn't have a career plan, so I just picked a subject that I thought I would enjoy. So I went to Portsmouth to study geography. And I had a kind of a vague plan to maybe be a journalist. And that was going to be what I was going to explore. However, when I was a student, I thought, I got into fitness, started to go to exercise classes, and I was given a dare by a gentleman on my course who dared me to go to, Meri's like this, where is this going? He dared me to go to the boxing club that was at the university and do a training session. And I thought, well, how
you
hard?
Lead the session?
No, just to go and
just
participate.
To go. Okay.
And I thought, how hard can that be? So I don't like to shrink from a challenge. So I turned up, opened the door to this gym hall. There was about 100 very fit male university students, because it turns out to be a boys boxing club as opposed to a mixed boxing club. But when you're in that moment and the gym door squeaks shut behind you, and then there's 100 pairs of eyes on you, I thought, I cannot just run away. I've just got to get through it. And it was the hardest 2 hours of my life. But something at the end made me think, well, that wasn't as bad. I didn't die.
So was that training? Or did you put gloves on?
No, they wouldn't let me anywhere near pads or gloves. But I was working on the bag. I was skipping. I was doing circuits. I have never worked so hard in my life. But I loved the way it made me feel at the end. And as a result of that, I just thought, well, they will think I will never come back. I was puce. I was so red and so close to death at the end that I thought, these lads will not expect to see me next week. And I thought, I need to prove.
Were you fit already?
No, Richard.
So this was like...
This was a baptism of fire into the world of fitness.
Wow.
I just thought... So I thought it took me a week to be able to walk properly again. And then I thought, I've got to turn up because they won't expect me to. And I kind of do like just pushing the boundary of what you can achieve, if only you've got the courage to just rock up like you've got permission. So I went back and I never left, and they sort of accepted the fact that I was worse than useless, but I was really trying very hard. And a year later they made me their vice captain, and so I was when I graduated, I was the vice captain of the boys boxing club. And there was no other female members, just me hanging out with them. But it taught me that I found something that I loved, the way it made me feel. And I thought, perhaps it would be really smart, instead of having a career in an area that my parents would be very proud of, but it felt like it might be a bit dull, how cool would it be to get paid to do something that made me feel really good? So I decided to graduate and exceeded all my parents' expectations by then going to get my exercise to music qualifications to teach aerobics, at which point the kind of...
So no geography at all?
No.
So you gave up travel, you gave up countries?
Yes.
hanging valleys, rift valleys,
Yes.
volcanoes, earthquakes, all that was gone.
Yeah, I haven't missed it.
No?
Because I thought, how cool would it be to help people, inspire them in the moment to achieve things that they physically do not believe is possible. And that's what I experienced. And I thought, how cool. So I had to break the news to my mum that I was actually going to use my degree to teach aerobics, which didn't go down that well. But I thought, change of direction. So I did that. I got a job in a leisure centre, absolutely loved it. But all the different types of qualifications, nothing would make me happier than being amongst a group of people that were trying to see whether they could be a better version of themselves physically. And I had so much fun and I loved it. And then because life has a habit of throwing little curveballs, I found out that my backache that I'd always had was actually an indication that I had some prolapse discs. And at age 21, I needed to have those removed.
Wow.
So very unexpectedly and very swiftly, I then found myself teaching a class to ending up in a London hospital having major back surgery. And that very much put an end to my ability to teach classes and work in a gym. But I had an incredible boss who, when I was returning to work and learning to walk again and mobilise, he said, why don't you take a little side turn and come and learn how to run the leisure centre? And so I thought, well, that doesn't sound as interesting as teaching aerobics, but I've got a mortgage to pay, so let's just go ahead and do that. So he helped me experience a whole different side to leisure and management, and I loved it. I loved working with people, organising people. You never knew in a council-run leisure centre, you would never know from one shift to the next what you were dealing with. Injuries, police incidents, drownings, all sorts of catastrophes. It was like the British Empire. You're probably too young to remember. Do you remember the British Empire? So about a leisure centre that is run on luck rather than judgment. And that was my experience for a few years. And I met my husband there. He used to run the lifeguard team. And as a result of that, I learned all sorts of leadership skills. But it became very hard to watch people do a job just through the glass at the end of the corridor. They were teaching classes, they were working out, they were doing all of the things that I would have given everything to go back to be able to do. And I thought it's actually really painful for me to watch.
And did you recover?
I recovered to be able to function, but not to do sport or guide. I couldn't demonstrate things that people needed to be able to see. So I needed to just move away from that. But it became excruciating to watch. And I thought, now it's time to take the extra skills I've learnt. I didn't go back to journalism. That didn't reoccur. Because at the time, and I think, sometimes opportunities exist. The podcast might be a good example of that it sort of comes out of nowhere. And you think, I wouldn't have seen that coming. But at the time, they were building Blue Water as a shopping centre, and the Blue Water recruitment team were holding a little recruitment centre in the reception area of the leisure centre. And I thought, well, maybe the skills I've learned running a team of young adults and very experienced leisure professionals, maybe those are transferable into retail. And John Lewis took a punt on me and offered me a job as the manager of the toy department. And if you could imagine that I could pick a department to work in, toys would be it, because I've always enjoyed having fun. And I thought, thank goodness they didn't offer me haberdashery or china and glass. I'd have been a nightmare. But they offered me...
so were you a bit like Tom Hanks in Big? Did you sort of wander around and sort of
Exactly that. We had more fun than we should have. And I had the privilege of going into John Lewis Blue Water before we opened in 99. And we laid out and created the department, trained the team. And we had so much fun, like too much fun. And then when we opened on day one, it was carnage because we used to stock some teddy bears that at the time were collectible. And I thought that this would be a real attraction for our customers. Turns out it was like, well, it was a competition. There were grown women like commando rolling under the shutter when we opened to get into the shop,
to get
to the second floor, to get one of the collectible teddy bears.
Wow.
And literally arguing over them. Fascinating. Human behaviour continues to astound me.
So around that time, it wasn't the Teletubbies, was it? No.
The Teletubbies were a little bit later than that.
Okay.
These were Beanie Bears.
Ah.
So they were big in America, and they'd come across the UK, and some were collectibles, and only a few were made.
Wow.
This a bit sounds like the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger about the Christmas toy.
Yes.
You describe how they were.
That's exactly what retail was like. But it was an incredible time, and it took John Lewis about 3 months to realise that I was too much of a distraction on the shop floor, and that we had too much fun, and I wasn't good enough at selling product, but I've got a really happy team. And so they sort of said, right, stop with the mischief on the shop floor, come and work behind the scenes in personnel, so HR, human resources, help us recruit, train, develop, and instill a culture in the branch. And that began the next kind of left turn into the field that I then spent 15 very happy years working for John Lewis, worked my way up through their personnel function, and at different times was responsible for spotting talent, recruiting people, developing them internally, promoting them. And then also, that's where I learned how to have very honest conversations about underperformance and to handle disciplinaries, where, I learned that you can address, poor behaviour and still allow people to have their dignity and still give them respect, even if it means that they no longer have their employment with you. And I loved every single moment of it.
How much training did they give you during that time? Did they give you a lot of training, or were you learning and seeing the skills and actually sort of building that knowledge yourself from dealing with the people around you?
Yeah, there was sort of ground level training in the technical and the legal aspects of employment law. I've been taken to tribunal by people who weren't very happy that I had ended their contract. And so there was a level of training that gave you the confidence that you knew how to behave within the law. But actually, a lot of my performance was based on leaders that I had worked with. And I think it's interesting to me that not all leaders, or not all leadership that I've ever seen, came from people who had leadership in their title.
Yes.
Because I think everybody is a leader.
Yeah.
And I'd seen really admirable qualities in the way that peers, people that I'd worked with, people that younger than me, older than me, had shown me. And I thought, you know what? The way they make people feel heard, or they somehow make you feel like you're the only person in the room. I want to be able to make people feel like that. Or people that actually had been very clumsy in the way they'd handled me or others. And I thought, I never want to make anyone feel like that. So I kind of took the best bits of all the people that had led me and thought, I'm going to try and grow into a leader that does more of that and less of the clumsy stuff. I'd love to say I had it nailed from day one, but I didn't.
But we're all learning.
But
That's every time, every day, isn't it? Because like every experience with every person that we meet and work with and work around, everyone's got different characteristics.
Yeah.
And we have to adapt each time to how they respond to us and how we respond to them.
And it was a really interesting time as well in retail as an industry, because when I started working for John Lewis, it was a time when we didn't open on a Monday, because there was such a thing as not working. You could shut a shop and not worry about your trade. So we didn't work on Mondays. The women that worked in the business couldn't wear trousers. It was very traditional, very old school. And then by the time I took redundancy in 2012 and left John Lewis, it was there'd been such a movement in so many ways. Customer expectations, 24-hour trading. There was online retailing, which wasn't a thing when I joined the business, and helping people navigate change and the different ways in which they were expected to do business and behave at work was, a really interesting experience for me.
What was the biggest challenge in that situation, do you think, in managing people?
Do you know what? I'd like to say that it was like a really unique one-off moment that was the perfect storm, but it wasn't. I think the biggest challenge was helping people understand that it was always going to be the simple questions and the simple conversations that had the most impact. I think I was surrounded by people who were trying to progress their careers or held very senior positions. And the way in which they spoke to people who didn't have the same journey as them, didn't have maybe the same level of understanding as them, or they were trying to impress by sounding so technical, and then wondering why they couldn't create followers and they couldn't engage people and get buy-in to their strategy or their plans. And then when you help them strip it all away to the simple ability to listen to what really mattered to people, explain what you wanted to achieve in a way that that person heard and understood, and help them just to see the person behind the badge or the business. And that was the way to achieve anything. And, you know, I saw that happen time after time after time. Didn't need to be complex. Didn't need to be technical.
How about, unfortunately, there is a bit, I don't know, people don't feel, I would say employees, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about, a bit more how to call them, like, not shop floor, how they call it, a bit more the ones, not senior management or whatever.
Yeah.
The
ones customer
employees,
facing.
yes.
The shop assistants.
Yeah, but that's in the shops or in any industry. Kind of people don't feel comfortable to go and speak to HR. How this can be shifted? Because usually the HR department should be the place where you have to feel comfortable to share, isn't it?
Cared about.
But in the meantime,
function.
I heard, unfortunately, not great stories when they are protecting much more the business and they're not gonna look in what you say. And I think fair enough, I had a conversation with an HR lady that is having outsourcing HR business, and I asked her how she finds that. Is it good to have an HR department in a business, or they need always to be outsourced because of that, how is it called?
The internal culture.
Yes. From your experience, and I'm sure that times have changed, but how did people come to talk there? And if you can give advice to someone who is listening now and they got something to say, can they feel comfortable to go, or what they can say to feel protected and honest at the same time?
Yeah. And I think it's always that challenge. Can you go to, how risky is it? How vulnerable will you feel if you go to a professional part of the company with a problem or a complaint? Will you be heard and understood? If you need something, will someone genuinely care enough to take the time to make you feel that it's as important to them as it is to you? And I think it very much, you mentioned internal culture. It very much depends on the culture of the business. And some of the clients that I work with now, they are most successful when they put the people at the heart of what they do. Because what we used to work on, and one of the founding philosophies of the business was always, if you look after the people will be happy in their work. They will then be happy looking after your customers. When your customers are happy, they're happy to spend money, and they will trade that experience for loyalty. And when they show their loyalty in return sales, the profit takes care of itself. So it was always people, customer, profit. Sometimes businesses look at the profit first. And in some models, it might be really profitable to remove the people function and have it on the end of a helpline or in a satellite location. I think somehow it challenges the relationship. People don't feel that you are approachable because they know that you don't know them as a person. They don't know your story. You don't know their background. You are the person on the end of a phone who, you know, is interested in their employee number. And actually that was part of the reason that I stepped away from the corporate world, because with the changing times in retail, John Lewis had to do what every other retailer was doing, was looking at its cost base, and it chose to centralise some of the functions. And although I was, I used to run the personnel function in a branch and then the democratic function in that same branch, those two areas came out and they were centralised from the head office. So whilst I had a fantastic opportunity to see what commuting in and out of London was like with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it was an interesting time, I also, it lost its heart, because in that branch there were 1,200 people that I had recruited, most of them. I had spoken to all of them. I knew the backstories. I'd helped them with their honeymoon leave, their maternity pay, their return to work, their promotion, their poor performance, the transfer of departments. We had a history, and therefore they trusted that when they came to my HR function.
I think this is exactly now where you're talking. This is now bringing that light in me, that lots of people who sat here and they were talking about exactly that people are the core of the business, and it's exactly that personal touch that you've got, and how important it is, because maybe, of course, doesn't matter what is your impact for the business. Are you just coming for your shift, you do your job and you go? If I've got that connection with you, somewhere through our journey, I'm going to feel much more comfortable to come and share. And
what
be
it allows
open.
people to do is it allows them to come to you when the problem or the concern or the worry is small.
Yes, before.
If they don't come to you with the small stuff, the chances are they have to wait until it becomes big stuff. And sometimes it was too big to be able to help them with. And if only they come and started that conversation when it was a small problem or a small concern, we could have squashed it then. We could have helped them, dealt with it then. But that takes, courage to believe that you're going to be trusted and that they will be, you'll respect them and create a place where you.
But it's amazing because that intimacy you had, even though there was, because John Lewis's in Bluewater that's one of the flagship stores in the country.
Flagship store, 1,200.
I mean, that's a huge employee number for one store. And obviously to have that intimacy with the people and to know them all and have that personal relationship, which obviously once you go into the central location, they're just names and numbers. And you lose that intimacy with the people and the opportunity to deal directly. So you're more than advising the store managers rather than actually dealing with the individuals. And that must have been, obviously I can understand why that would be much more tricky as well.
And, a decade on, my husband will say that is a good thing now. Because when we used to go shopping, even when I took my redundancy and began my coaching business, even when I went into that branch, we couldn't move from one department to the next without being stopped by everybody that worked there, because we had a friendship, we had a relationship. Now, 10 years on, I don't know many of those people. So my husband will say it's a much quicker experience now because we don't get
shopping used to be all day. And that was just one store.
But it taught me so much. And, it taught me to ask good questions. It taught me to remember that I see the world through a certain lens. No one else sees the world the same way. And that when I have conversations with people now, I try my absolute best to work out how they see the world so that I can share what I might know or a perspective and try and get it through their lens.
I'm finding this lesson very difficult. And for years, I think that was one of my problems, that I was always thinking, if I can do it, what means the others can't see it, or how it's over there?
Why is it not obvious to you?
But yes, I would say maybe even since the podcast started, all these amazing leaders, people, experience, people start when you share and talk to them and they give you back that feedback, and they actually open my eyes that yes, we are humans, all of us, but we all see different. And even on one sentence or specific situation, we're going to see it different.
And you never know what people have experienced to get to where they are. The assumption is that they are grateful to work somewhere or to have the opportunity to do something, and that they are happy to be there and everything in their world is rosy. And then sometimes people give you a little window into their world and you think, good grief. When you turn up at that networking event or that shift, I had no idea what you have to leave at the door and compartmentalise so that you can deliver what we ask you to do in a shift. And it's very humbling to get an insight into people's worlds. And it reminds me that even if you've been through something similar, you don't know what it felt like to be them. And, you know, it taught me early on to have grace for people and give people patience and the benefit of the doubt. Let them tell you what their world looks like before you make sweeping assumptions about what it might feel like to be them. So I learned a lot.
That's very important and powerful. But how people like me can learn that? How you get in practice? Is it with the questions and you get this patience?
Yeah, I'd love to have a
there
secret formula for that. But I think it depends. I found it relatively easy to do because I'm curious about people. And I also am a byproduct of the journey that I've walked. And I, at the same time as growing up with John Lewis, I was also, you know, starting a family. And I wanted to make sure that I had good skills that would allow me to communicate with my kids. And, you know, I'm blessed with 8 nieces and nephews. And only one of them is older than my children. And I wanted to be somebody in their life that they had an opportunity to come and talk to who, you know, who wasn't the mum, who wasn't, you know, somebody who they might feel they couldn't share the really important stuff with. They wanted someone that wasn't going to judge, wasn't going to be quick to act. And I knew that I needed to have certain skills to be able to do that for my own children and my nephews and nieces. So it became, some people follow one personal development path. Communication was always my thing. And I had a natural ability to not be too scared to stand in front of an audience and tell the truth about maybe the financial situation the branch was in, or an initiative that we wanted to launch.
But this was a skill that you just had it in you?
Yeah,
or
I think
was
it just developed
yeah.
over time. You know, the confidence to, you know, to teach a class of people an aerobics routine translated into dealing with a customer complaint when I was the duty manager of the leisure centre and there was no one else there, turned into, you know, a conversation with the emergency services when the evacuation alarm would go off at Blue Water and I was the most senior person there, and it translated into, you know, delivering bad news to family members when there was, you know, a crisis at home. And it's just a series of conversations that I wouldn't have chosen to go into. But the universe put me there and I had to deal with them and I learned from them.
The thing is, you eventually become you're either a natural communicator or you're not a natural communicator. That's the thing, isn't it?
But here I've got something to ask and to mention, because I will give example myself. Quite a few things were happening, let's say, for the last 20 years, where I'm that kind of person that when something is black or white, it's black or white. I mean, I can't say it's grey or I can't pretend something is not right. And I found that confidence to go and speak up. It may cost me sometimes a bit more than it should be, or people will tell me you have to be more quiet. But when it's about fairness, I can't close my eyes.
Yeah.
So on that front, I'm going to go and share and say and speak to whoever needs. Of course, everything is with professional way. But in the meantime, I don't have the confidence to maybe walk in that networking event and start a big conversation or presentation. I don't know how this work. On one side, I do have something and I can't close my eyes and I want to go and say it. It's not possible. I can keep my mouth. But on the other side, I don't have that confidence, where it's not about either reporting a problem or saying something good for something else. I don't know how
I think
it works.
it's interesting over the years to watch the stories that people tell themselves, because you said I don't have the confidence in the networking environments, but as far as I can tell, you were in the room. So the lack of confidence that you have decided to own should have kept you in the car park, or it should have kept you at home with a headache. It should have kept you from being able to stay till the end. It should have caused you to take the fake phone call that looked like it was a reason for you to leave halfway through. But none of those things happened. So, but habitually, our self-talk becomes our reality. So with many people, one of the things I help them to challenge is, what is actually the story that you used to tell yourself that might well have been true? But the evidence of you, the way you do what you do now, actually, that's not true anymore. So what is the story now? And sometimes it can't be, I am God's gift to networking. I enter every room with an aura of confidence. It might not be that extreme, but the self-talk to challenge you to then replace that old, statement with, actually, I'm no longer scared to go networking. I'm getting better and better at starting conversations with people I don't know. I feel more and more comfortable in rooms full of strangers. That is more reflective of the truth. But the self-talk that we perpetuate, it keeps us small. Whereas I'd say you need to stop that, because that's actually not true. The reality is, the evidence, the social proof is that I didn't know that rookie meeting when we met was your first meeting. You seemed far more confident than I felt, because I had sat in the car park at my first rookie meeting going, I don't know, do I honestly need to be here? I bet everyone knows everyone. This is going to be awkward. Maybe no one knows I'm coming. I'll just drive off.
Especially when you come up on your own.
Yes.
You arrive on your own. If you're going
Terrifying.
together, you walk into a room, there's two of you, it's a much bigger position. But when you walk in a room on your own, and you've got to, you either stand there, you don't know where there are all these other people, and
especially as you mentioned, a place where everybody, and this specifically network event, they're so friendly and lovely, everybody, that
but the story we tell ourselves is everyone knows everyone, no one will speak to me. That's not true.
No.
So I think sometimes we need to gently challenge ourselves, or have somebody say, you know that's not right, don't you? Stop that. How about replacing it with this? And back to your original question of how do you encourage people to come and speak their truth, raise that issue, share their concern. The thing that I found stops people from having the difficult conversation, because many people would class that as a difficult conversation, is that they haven't quite thought through what they want to happen as a result. They're often very clear as what they want to explain as the problem, but they don't always know the so what. And the moment I would say to people, people come in and to my office and say, so-and-so is treating me unfairly, and I feel like this, and I'm not happy, and this, and I would say to them, okay, and they'd paint me a picture, and I'd ask enough open questions to really get a feel for what the world looked like through their eyes. And then I would say to them, so what do you want to happen now? And it would always surprise me the number of people that would say, I don't know. I just wanted you to know. And I'd say, I know, but for you to come, you must want change. What do you want to happen now? And people rarely think it through. And even putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, like attending an event that you're nervous about, what do you want good to look like? And if good is just that you'll walk in and you will have one conversation and meet one person that you didn't know before you went in, before you leave, then when you achieve that, you think, oh, this was a success. I know what I wanted to happen.
Escape to luxury at Hempstead House Hotel and Spa, an elegant country house hotel in Bapchild, near Sittingbourne, Kent. Relax with indulgent spa treatments. Dine in style with exquisite cuisine. Perfect for getaways, weddings and events. Experience luxury in the heart of Kent. Book your stay today.
Be the first to discover Kent's best events all in one free app. What's On in Kent is a new and rapidly growing app where you can find days out information, places to eat, festivals, concerts, markets, and much more around you. Just with few clicks on your phone or computer, you can stay updated with real-time info and explore events across Kent. Don't even think twice. Just download. It's free.
It's very interesting.
Sometimes it's prepping.
Because there's a lot of confidence that lacks. Because sometimes people talk in their group of peers. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to tell them this, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say that. And they've got all this, and then they get there and they stood in front of the manager, the leader, and that very question comes. So what would you like to do? Mm. And then all of a sudden, they had it all, but they just can't present it because they're worried then that it's going to have a backlash on them, and they're going to go, oh, well, so you said that, right? Okay, I'll go and talk to your boss now and tell him that he needs to change this and change that, or she needs to change this and change that. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, well, you're going to be pushed down.
And it was never offered as an aggressive way to shut them down from complaining. It was genuinely, I hear you. So how can I help? What does good look like in your world? And in the same respect, I used to say to, a professional person in that environment, do you just want someone to hear you? Would you like, this to form part of an investigation and be progressed? Would you like me to talk to this person? Do you want to change departments? What is it that you want? Give them options. And then they would be able to navigate their own path. And similarly with, as a mum of 2 teens, quite often there'll be a moment where they'll rant or something's on their mind and they'll share with me. And instead of rushing in with what I assume a good outcome looks like, what I think a solution is, I will say to them, okay, what do you want? Do you want me to help you? Do you just want to be heard? Or do you just want to hug? And sometimes I'm with my kids and my nieces, nephews, I always say to them, so you want help? Do you want to be heard? Do you want to be hugged? And sometimes they'll just say, I just want you to hear me out. And they don't need me to solve it. They don't need an answer. They feel better for sharing. And sometimes I say, I just want a hug. I'm hurting. It didn't feel nice. Or I'm disappointed in myself. And I know better now. And sometimes I need you to help me understand how to work through it. And sometimes in conversation, knowing that we don't always have to have a solution, but we can help guide the person to their own solution, I think it allows the person to retain their power. They still feel empowered to be able to get a great outcome. And that when I coach people to do public speaking, it's similarly, I say to them, what do you want people to know? What is it that you actually want to share with them? And put yourself in their seat. What do you think they will hear inside their own head when you share that information with them? Will they think, well, that's right for you. I could never do that because, or well, how would you do that then? Or, well, that's interesting. I wonder how I can find out more. What do you think their self-talk says? And how can you respond? And then lastly, how do you want them to feel when they leave the room? And this is the process that I went through before I spoke. When you heard me, Meri, what did I want to share with you? What did I think you would hear your inner voice say when you were listening? And how did I want you to feel when you walked away? And when you know that, it gives you confidence that you can share the right information, because you can always weigh it up against, I wanted to achieve this. Does this information do that or not? And then you get a confidence because you think, this is good stuff. This is the right stuff to share. And then when your audience responds really well, it's another moment of social proof that actually you can do those things and you are more comfortable and that you're more confident.
Is there, obviously public speaking is becoming a bit more, at least I hear much more about it. I don't know if maybe it was always a popular topic. Do you think anyone can become a public speaker?
Yeah.
Is it something that you can learn and you can always find the story that got the value to be shared?
I genuinely do believe that. It may not be shared as an opinion by everyone, but I don't think that great speakers are born. I think great speakers are created, and that your ability to become, and it depends what you mean, what people mean by great speaker. For me, when I speak, I measure my success by, do I think I offered value? So one of the founding principles of Conversations Unlimited, when I created it, was always the founding principle of to speak is to serve. So I don't believe when you get an opportunity to speak in front of an audience on a podcast that should be a moment of self-promotion. I am constantly, and we spoke, I've asked you on several occasions, the audience that you've got, what do you think I could share that would be of interest to them? What do you think they would be served well by? I'm constantly thinking, how can I serve an audience? And if you want to be a great speaker, it's normally because people can resonate with what you've shared. There is something that you offered that was valuable to them, and it allows them to be better, do better, or think differently in some way. And I'm not a believer that you can go into a room and motivate anyone or everyone. You can't go in, I'm an inspirational speaker. It makes me twitch a little bit. I'm a motivational speaker. I don't think you can motivate anyone other than yourself. You can't inspire anybody. You become inspired by what you hear. So it's the audience's job to inspire themselves, to motivate themselves to do something. But in the process of sharing what you think could be of value, the chances are they might be able to inspire themselves or motivate themselves. So I think it's completely learnt.
Because nowadays you can see very often on profiles, international keynote speaker, inspirational speaker, etc. And if you look more, it's not often you can see actually what was done. Maybe it was a invitation once somewhere to talk or something to be done. But I think people like to say, even if they had a short presentation on a network event, I don't know. And suddenly, when is the point that you really become a speaker, keynote speaker, or however you wanna?
I think that's a
Is
big
it
question.
something like it's becoming your? Because we had like Zoe here, and Zoe is a speaker. She's invited, and she's obviously about social media. She's
incredible.
Constantly going to places, and she loves it.
Tim's the same.
Yes, team maker. But some people maybe did it once or twice. Is there any way that you find these people, or it's just when you see what they're doing and what presenting, it's your personal assumption to decide to follow or not, or if they're in this category for being
some people
a speaker?
Do, they are professional speakers, so you can pay them to deliver an after dinner, speech. When we used to run events in the corporate world, you would hire a keynote speaker. What we meant by that, what we were looking for was our business was in a certain place. We were looking to create a certain type of change of behaviour or action, and we were looking for somebody whose story had elements of what we wanted to create in it, and by telling their story, we would hope people would draw a parallel and think, if they managed to overcome that adversity, we can overcome our adversity.
Yes.
So I think speaking is just storytelling, and I always speak to my clients when I say to them, only a small proportion of every audience will really need to hear what you're offering. You're unlikely to move, inspire, motivate a whole room of people to adopt whatever it is that you're talking about. But if you have a passion for sharing the story that life has given you, I don't think you can decide who is going to find that valuable.
That's the key word. You just use the key word. Right? And one thing that's one of the most important things is the passion. Because you could have two subject matter experts. One who stands up and can explain it and talk and be really uninspiring and sit there and everyone's going, please,
let it end.
I need you to go home. Can we stop? I want to go home. Or you've got someone else who's really delivering, and this is a really exciting story, and I really want to share this and deliver it and give it punch and give it excitement, tell a bit of a story. Oh, and everyone has a smile and a laugh and they go. And that person, get them back. Get them back. They were amazing. I really like listening to you. You were
They could have the
great.
same bio, couldn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
How would you? And it's not. It's in the delivery. It's impossible to know who will be touched by what you share. So I think sometimes your measure of success, if you choose to speak in front of people, is not to measure your value or your success by the number of people who listen to you or do something as a result of what you say. The measure of success is about marrying the journey. I always say to my clients, marry the journey, divorce the result. Celebrate the fact that you had the courage to stand in front of people and say, I'm not sure that you're all going to want to use all the things that life has taught me about public speaking. But I'm here today genuinely with the desire to share the 5 lessons that I've learned that really helped me in case they help you. And with that genuine, authentic approach and desire to just serve, just share, just tell the story and let people decide if it's valuable. So I think your reputation comes from the result. Some people, you can create an impression on social media that you are all singing, all dancing, bells and whistles. And then you can get in front of a room of people and people think, what? This isn't the shiny, papa, impression that I created. Or you can just show up in rooms and offer a little piece of your heart delivered in a way that your audience stands the best chance to hear and understand you. And let the result of that take care of itself. If that leads to another invitation to share the same topic somewhere else, or it leads to an invitation to share the same topic with a bigger audience, so be it. Let the impact of that unfold. And I think there's a real joy that you get in the beauty of marrying the process.
And that often happens in terms of, like, for example, you might do a one-to-one, like, for example, in sales, you might be doing a presentation on a maybe a small group to start with. There might be one person, then maybe another time you go to another group and maybe there's 2 or 3 people in the room and you're presenting to 2 or 3 people, and that becomes quite a big step change. And then eventually someone will ask you, because they'll have heard somebody talking about a particular subject, and they go, actually, would you like to present this to a group? And that's a much bigger thing when all of a sudden you've gone from delivering a presentation to 2 or 3 people to standing up in front of maybe doing a training session. You're doing 10 people or 15 people. And then someone says, oh, actually, would you mind doing a presentation to 200 people? But the step change is quite big. And also, one of the hardest things is being structured, knowing when to stop, when to make someone think, to put the right pause. And when you pause, to learn not to, but rather that the needs to be inside. So those moments are quiet. And I think that's one of the hardest things probably to teach somebody, and to build that resilience. And I'm sure the people you're teaching, to learn that skill is one of the biggest things, I think, to change people.
And, that presentation, Feel the Fear, Speak Anyway, that I delivered was 10 minutes at Rookie. Those 5 observations and realizations about how audiences receive information, and the 5 top tips that I shared for you to be able to get through that audience filter, they are the same 5 observations and tips that I have used in one-to-one conversations through the years. And exactly to your point, Richard, when I left the corporate world, I joined multi-level marketing with Forever Living, which is the aloe vera company, and was fascinated at how that vehicle, low level investment into a health and wellness, for want of a better term, franchise business, allowed you to build a full-time income more flexibly around my family, and how to use that as a bridge to begin my coaching. And exactly as you just described, I used to just get along training my own team, little groups, and then we partnered with someone else who wasn't in the same team as us within the business. They came along, heard me train our team about how to have meaningful conversations that didn't feel salesy with people, because that was a number one worry when people were involved in recommending products, that they would feel that they were putting people under pressure. And suddenly that person went back to her team, much bigger team, and said, would you come and deliver that to my team? And suddenly that's a team of 60. And then she was very influential within the company. And suddenly it was the company's having a national event. Would you deliver something like that to the audience? And I was like, yeah, of course. And suddenly that became an 800 strong audience. And then there was actually the country manager watched the video of that. Would you come and do it at a success day? And that was in Ricoh Arena. And that was 3,000 people. And then it was the London Palladium when they rented that out for training. And then it was, would you come and do that in Milan? Would you come and do that in Amsterdam? Would you come and do it in, another country, can't think. And there was booths at the back with 6 different interpreters translating my presentation in the moment, because there were at least 6 different languages from the audience. And suddenly I didn't know where we didn't even have a social media presence. I had left the corporate world 6 months earlier, and I was in an arena in front of 3,000 people, delivering a 40-minute training slot. And the techniques I used there were exactly the same as I would use in a boardroom to a handful of senior leaders, in a one-to-one where I was trying to deliver a message. It was all about who's in your audience. What do you know about the people in those seats? What can you guess to be correct? Or what do you know about the way their world looks and what they are facing? And from everything that you know, what could you offer that might be valuable to them? What are the 3 to 5 points that you'd love them to hear from you? Not because you think they need to do them or they should be doing them, but just they're the most powerful messages you could share. What do you think they'll think when they hear it? And how do you want them to feel when they walk away? Mm-hmm. And that has never put me straight, because what it does, to your point of preparation and the confidence to speak, is it makes you believe when you step onto a stage with any size audience that you are doing nothing less than bringing part of your heart to people and say, I am prepared to show you what the inside of my world looks like, and just offer you little bits of experience. And if you can use them, I'll be delighted. And if you can't, then please at least feel the genuine nature with which I'm sharing them. And I hope that they help. And I don't think that ever misses the mark. Whether they want what you offer or not, whether they take away your tips and use them or not, I think you can't not feel the genuine, authentic desire for someone to serve in the moment. And that ability to think before you open your mouth, this content, I think it's as good as it could be for the people that can hear it. It takes all of the pressure away from you. It's not about you. No one cares. They're not going to remember if you're rubbish because nothing that you said got through their filter of being interesting or relevant to them. If you didn't touch them with your stories, they will forget you in a heartbeat. You are not important in their world. They don't care what you wear. They don't mind that you stumbled, that you paused, whether you had notes, whether you didn't. No one cares. They are filtering everything they hear to is this relevant to me? Is this interesting to me? Does this help me? If it does, they're absorbing it and working on how it affects them. And if not, they forgot you in a heartbeat. They're looking for their person.
And not everybody in the room is going to listen.
No.
Especially, the bigger the audience, there's a good chance quite a few of them will go, well, not sure why I'm here.
Absolutely. And that happens even when you've got an audience of 5.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes I spoke to people in the corporate world that had to be in the room and they didn't want to listen. And then you go to an event where 3,000 people bought a ticket. So at least they chose to be there. But I always, with my clients, I say to work on the basis that you have the potential to, on average, reach about 5% of your audience. If 5% can be positively affected by what you say, if you say it with your whole heart, the chances are that the 95%, they won't want what you shared, but at least they'll respect you for how you did it. So you go 5% will recognise value in your content, 95% will just respect you for offering it with sincerity. And that, to me, is what good looks like. And I don't know that you can write that in a LinkedIn bio. I don't know that that is, you probably can. You probably could be far better than I am on my socials, because I much prefer to do the work than talk about the work that I was doing.
Something similar that we talked earlier, that we had the situation with someone who on the socials was brilliant,
Shiny.
but in the actual conversation, nowhere near. So maybe it's much better to not be that shiny and to leave people once they connect, see the difference. Obviously, we mentioned a few times, once you left the corporate world, you did this...
the network marketing with
yes. And after that, how it came up the idea to start your business and to...
I'd always wanted to do communication coaching. So that's why I left the corporate world. I missed the personal contact with people, and I wanted to leave before that reputation was tainted and my enjoyment of the job. I'm a great one. If you enjoy it, stay. If you don't, find the thing
find your way. Yeah.
And I got the opportunity to take redundancy. I didn't have... It's very dangerous to jump straight out of a salaried job into a coaching business. No one knew me as a communication coach. I don't think it surprised many people they ended up guiding people in communication, because that was always what I was known for in the corporate world. But I didn't jump from one to the other. So I used network marketing as a vehicle to strengthen my leadership skills, because in that environment, you work with people who aren't employed by you. You do not pay their salary, and therefore they are almost like a volunteer army. And that requires you to lead people in a totally different way, because they're under no obligation to do what you say, when you say it, how you say it. They can go rogue at any minute. And so it tested and developed my leadership skill. And also I got the opportunity to explore public speaking in audiences and in ways that I could never have explored otherwise if I'd stayed in the corporate world. And also it opened my eyes to personal development and how important that is to people who run their own businesses. And I was doing the whole juggling between my income from network marketing and how could I start to build my coaching business. And when one was big enough, I would make the switch. And then in 2019, my hairdresser inadvertently started my business for me. So she knew what I did, and that I helped people to have confidence in speaking or have difficult conversations, make their voice heard, whatever. And I went in for an appointment, and she said to me, "Oh, by the way, I've got a client. I've just given her your number because she is a statistics analysis role in a potato company, and she needs to do a presentation. She hates it. I said you can help her, and I told her you charge. It's what you do." And I was like that. I hadn't got a company name. I hadn't got a logo. I had no website. I had no pricing structure, because at that point, I still thought, no one's going to pay me to tell them this stuff. This is so obvious. It's so simple.
Obvious for you.
It can't be a thing.
It's definitely a thing.
And she was like, tough, I've given her your number. I was like, oh. So when this delightful woman rang me, I just thought it took me back to opening that gym door at university and thinking I either step in and try and own it, or I close the door and run. And I thought, I can't. And so I stepped into that conversation and thought, let me just see. Let me pretend she's not paying me, and let me just see if I can help her. And it was wonderful. And then, of course, word got round, because there are lots of people for whom they're really good at the job they do, but presenting or speaking or suddenly having to talk on Zoom calls or manage a team, suddenly they've got to have conversations that are not their skill set, but the job requires it. And I have loved helping people like that ever since, along with all sorts of other clients. I've got a real mix, and I wouldn't say no to any of them. Love it.
Now, Beth, one of the things that I definitely see is, and a lot of people would say to me, is like, if you stand up and you present, do you feel nervous? And obviously one of the things that I always say to everyone, yeah, you always feel nervous. There's always, and if you don't feel nervous, actually there's something a bit wrong. Even if you know the subject matter inside out, you walk into a room, even before going into meetings, some of the meetings, people you know, of course you don't feel so nervous because you know them and you're presenting to them all the time. But as soon as you go into a room and there's lots of people and you're standing up for the first time, maybe they've travelled from various places in the country, and all of a sudden you stand up, you're on the stage, and you're the focus. Everyone is looking at you, and you stand there and
and you think, why have I got no saliva? Why is my mouth dry?
I haven't got a drink.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And there's those moments where you have to start.
Yeah. And I think I share your view. I was very nervous before I did that presentation to the rookie CEO. So nervous.
You know.
I was nervous in a different way coming today, because I have decided that the story I tell myself is that feeling is just an indication that what I'm about to do matters to me, and that without it, I probably am going to do a less of a service than to feel it. So I have turned those into, rather than an indication of my body going, get out, this is vulnerable, this is about to go horribly wrong, leave the room, you are not safe. I have now trained myself to believe it's just an indication that this stuff matters to me. And I've been here before. So one of the things I work with lots of people about, and going back to the story you tell yourself about, you don't have the confidence to network, which is not true, as we've established, is the story I've learned to tell myself is that that's actually more excitement than it is fear, and that therefore it's a good omen. And I've got social proof that I felt that before and nothing bad happened. And so I always encourage my clients to find the moments of social proof, because those make the story that you're otherwise telling yourself obviously untrue. You know, I'm not good speaking in front of people. But if you can find 5, 10, 20 examples where you have spoken in front of people and it didn't go badly, that statement's not true. So I always remind myself in those moments of fear that I remind myself of the social proof that I've had in the past, that this didn't land badly, nothing bad happened, and that I'm not expecting to impact everybody. I'm just offering a piece of my heart, and therefore not telling anyone what they should or shouldn't be doing, not judging anyone. What's the worst that can happen? People will forget me in a heartbeat. That's actually the worst that will happen. You know, when I worked at the leisure centre and I was in charge of staffing, when we got the numbers of lifeguards wrong, people had the potential to drown. So it was really important that we did stuff right. And the worst thing that would happen if we didn't man the pools in the right way was that somebody would drown. When I'm standing in the front of a room of a few people or a massive audience, I think the worst thing that will be happening, if this doesn't go well, is that people won't remember me, I'll make a fool of myself, but no one's going to drown. And, you know, when I was in leisure, we did have a drowning, and both my husband now, wasn't married at the time, we were tiny, so young when we met, but he actually did CPR and brought a little 8-year-old boy who had drowned in the swimming pool back to life. I'd done CPR on an elderly lady who had a heart attack in the pool. And you kind of think, that's the stuff that's really risky. So in the greater scheme of things, how badly can this go? If I got that wrong, someone died. If I get this wrong, I'm going to be slightly embarrassed and maybe not remembered. Is it worth the courageous moment to try? And it is. So, but I think there are techniques that you can use to overcome the fear. One is breathing before. And also I guide people to wear something that's comfortable. One of the strangest things that would happen with the big audiences was that particularly female speakers, they would wear a lot of supportive undergarments to try and look as slim and as shapely as possible. And these Spanx or whatever they were wearing was, you know, it was like being in a vice grip. And actually their body couldn't physically manage the air that they needed to speak. And so their voice became a version of, because there was all of this constriction around their stomach. And I would say to them, for God's sake, wear something that allows you to physically do what your body needs. And being able to stand in a position that allows you to own your power, gives you confidence, because people often lose confidence by the movement. They start to develop like a little dance. They rock.
And some people walk. You're almost better to move and walk. Sometimes, if as long as you've got a microphone, you can walk.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better.
Yeah, because you're burning off. That kind of that cortisol energy of fight and flight. You're flighting in the moment. As long as when you have a point that you want really people to remember, you challenge yourself to stand still.
Yeah.
Because the standing still.
That drives the impact. Yeah. It does drive the impact, doesn't it?
And then you can walk, take them somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's just learning stagecraft and your posture and how you can help yourself.
Well, it's interesting because you can see that when you watch a comedian like Michael McIntyre. Oh, yeah. So he's like moving along the stage and he's backwards and forwards, and then he gets to the punchline and he always stops. And he looks back at the audience and they're like waiting.
Yeah.
And there's a pause and he delivers.
And I use that exact example of comedians because they are masters of the craft. And when you present, you are just telling a story. A comedian is telling a story. Hopefully it's a story. If we're going to laugh at the end, it's a story that we can picture ourselves living. And Michael McIntyre is genius because, like Peter Kay, their humour is so everyday that the chances are that you've seen what he's describing happen, or you've felt it, or you've lived it. And I often say to my clients, not to be afraid of the pause and the silence after they deliver a killer point that they want people to remember. And I encourage them to watch comedians because they'll tell their story, and Michael McIntyre will be moving across and he'll be building up the momentum of his story. And then when he delivers his punchline, he'll just stay perfectly still. There's a heartbeat of pause. And that's because the audience's brain needs to catch up because they've been listening to the information. They've been purposefully kind of translating it into, do I understand the story he's telling? They've been deciding whether it's relevant to them, whether they understand what he's talking about, and then they react. And the reaction is the laughter. But that needs time. Their brain needs time to catch up with him. And so if he pauses at the end of his punchline, there's always a laugh. If he moved on to his next joke, there'd be no space. The joke would fall flat, not because it wasn't funny, but he didn't give people a chance to keep up. So it's a great example of someone using the stage as the audience needs them to use it, not for their own personal gratification.
But it's interesting because but it does ease the inner confidence with that energy as well. I think that energy, as you're unwinding the story. Yeah. And one of the things that you often see, particularly if you're in front of somebody else presenting, is there's so many people when they're using a presentation on the screen and they've got in front of them lots of text. Lots of text is terribly difficult. It's okay if you're sitting there and you need a load of text because it's about something, okay, that's fine. But if you're presenting in front of a lot of people, actually you don't want it unless otherwise they're going to sit there. They're either taking pictures of it, which is okay, or it becomes just so sterile. Because what tends to happen is the person presenting turns to the screen, reads the text, and that's the last thing you should be doing. The thing is, you're the subject matter expert. You've written that text in the first place. You know what's behind you. You don't need that. You need to be engaging, looking, watching, seeing, and actually in that position, that's a big help, I think. And then it makes it interesting because you're telling the story about what's behind you.
And the more confident you are about your topic, the less you need on your slides. And I think sometimes going back to the, really thinking through what it is you want to share. If you don't feel particularly confident that you've got great content that you're going to share in front of that audience, it feels safer to have it all on the screen. Because if you forget something or you miss things, people can pick it up there. But I always think it's an indication of of the hope that it's a support and the hope that nothing will be lost. And if I lose my track, I can look and read and find the point that I wanted to make. Whereas actually people find it quite distracting. They'd much rather have a funny image or, you know, and I'm a great one for, I have text on all of my slides, but it will be the sentence because I'm also conscious that people learn in different ways. And for some people, they are listening to me, but they need to see it as well for it to really resonate with them. So, but a funny picture or something personal, you know, a photo of what it means to you, the story, you know, we were brought up primeval times of storytelling. That's how we remember things. So, less is more.
Tell us about when you went to that journey of your business. What were the setbacks? Does anyone help you? Did you ask for help somewhere? How did you find that journey?
Terrifying. Absolutely. And I'm not afraid to say self-improvement was and continues in varying degrees to be terrifying. I thought the grass was always greener because what I wanted was greater freedom, times my own, an income that I could dictate. And with those things comes the requirement to wear a million different hats. I'm not good with accounts. I find it dull. Sometimes I'm not even good with remembering to charge for my services because I'm all about the thing, not the background bit that follows up. So I stumbled over knowing the number of hats that I would need to wear. I suffered from imposter syndrome of I can't charge people for what I do. I certainly can't charge that an hourly rate. Or, you know, that sounds ridiculous. I was almost apologetic for my pricing to start with. I also had the best ideas, but was scared at times to bring them to reality. And then sometimes I was really courageous and brought an idea and launched a package or a workshop or some sort of offer that I thought everybody would jump on, and no one wanted that. And I couldn't understand it. And so I spent a lot of time in my own head. And I think if I had that decade again, I would find myself a partner in crime. And that's why, you know, your duo is just addictive to watch. And before we went on camera, to see the confidence and the boost and the joy that you get sharing an experience with someone else. And I think as a solopreneur, I didn't have that person. I did when I started my network marketing career. My partner in crime was another leader from John Lewis, and we both left at the same time. And we shared the fears, the anxieties, and we talked each other down all the time. But then when it came to launching Conversations Unlimited, it was just me. And my friend Gemma Easton, she's now an incredible high-performance coach based in the Northeast. But she was building her business and I was building mine, and it's lonely. And I think leadership is lonely. And I wish I had surrounded myself with people that were experiencing the same thing to reassure me that my doubts were normal, not an indication that I shouldn't do this, that, or the other. Maybe my business would have grown quicker. Maybe I would be more dynamic than I am now. Maybe I'd be doing something different. I don't know.
You never
know.
But
at each turn, I've kind of thought, well, the outcome of the popularity of that program over this program, it tells me something. And one of the things I actually wanted to do and I'm deeply passionate about is communication coaching with kids. And that's actually how I marketed myself in the beginning, was as a comms coach for kids, because I believe that the way society is now is creating a bigger struggle for young children, for teens and young adults to believe that their voice has value and to make their voice heard. And they're losing communication skills that they might have had when they weren't communicating by text. I mean, my son went through a phase where it was obviously too much effort to type OK. We just went with K. And I was like, oh my word, let alone we've forgotten the whole sentence. We're now down to a single letter. But trying to launch a kids communication coaching business was incredibly hard because parents were the ones who would pay. And I was trying to talk to them about the needs of someone else. The kids couldn't see me because I was on social media platforms and in audiences that they weren't part of. The parents could see me, but some didn't realise it would help. Some didn't have the means or didn't want to pay for it. And others believed that they'd done all right and that struggling to fit in and, you know, and it was just a rite of passage and didn't value what that could bring. So actually what I had to do was completely side turn my business and think, right, how can I, you know, at the end of my days, look back and think Conversations Unlimited made a difference in the lives of kids. If I can't reach them, and I didn't want to go into schools, that's a huge red tape. I'm bored of that. So how can I get that outcome? Was my mission. And I thought, well, I can impact the way adults communicate, because once you change the way you communicate in one arena, I think it ripples out, and that's the way you communicate at work is the same way as you communicate at home, in your social group, with your family, as a parent, as an uncle, as an auntie. You don't just keep an improvement in communication to one area of your life. And I thought, if I can help adults communicate in a better way, more impactful way, more open, wholehearted way, the chances are they're also going to use that approach when they talk to children. And we know that children just imitate. They're great imitators. We just need to give them something great to imitate.
Yes.
And so we will affect the way they communicate. So I thought, that's how I'm going to do it. But that's not what I set out to do. So the business has evolved and grown into areas, and I had to be really clear about what do I love doing, because I think many of us, I'm sure yourselves included, lots of things we can do, but only some of them light us up. And it's how do you say no to the things that you've got the skill set to do but don't really enjoy.
It's not your passion.
So you can save your energy to do the stuff that only you can do, because you do it in a way that brings you to life. I'd like to say it was very simple, Meri, but it wasn't.
No, that's good, because this is why we've got the podcast, to show everybody that, they can follow what they love to do, but they need to be prepared that it's not a easy way, and we want to break that. Is it obviously nowadays, have you changed anything? Are you surrounded by more other entrepreneurs or not, to exchange all these ideas, to have support? Because I can see that more and more we are meeting people who are on that journey, and they all said that it's not an easy one, but when you get surrounded by people who do kind of the same things, it's much easier and better.
And it helps you to realise that your struggle is part of life, and it's okay. It's not an indication that you're about to fail. So I think lockdown was a period that isolated many business owners and entrepreneurs, and we had to think differently. I certainly had to move all of my in-person events online. But again, that opened up opportunities where people were saying, well, actually, I'm quite good in person, but I am terrified of running my sessions through a lens. And so actually, a lot of what I did was helping people to understand how to convey their energy through a camera, a Zoom call, and how to not look like you've got a plant growing out of the back of your head and such like, and how
simple
much
things
harder,
that people were missing it. Yes,
but also how much harder it is to reach someone when you are talking to them through Zoom, because so much of what we communicate is non-verbal, and when you see like their head and shoulders in a Zoom screen, it's not the same as being next to each other, which is why I love the fact that you do your podcast in person.
Talking something about Zoom, I've got one question. I've seen that there are networking over Zoom. How this works? I never experienced it. If you experience it, I just want, or have you? I never ask you, but
no,
because I can't figure it out in my head how you walk in a room and you speak with different people can happen on Zoom.
They tend to put you in breakout rooms. So there's the facility. If there's 40 of you that join a call, normally the networking host will introduce it and do the opening spiel. And then they will say, we've got a question that we'd like you to discuss. And we're going to put you into separate rooms. And all of a sudden, on your screen, you get an invite to join breakout room number 1. And when you accept that, you find that now on your screen, there's just 6 of you. And the next 6 are in a different room. You can't see them. So you're all having a conversation. And then there's a timer runs out. You come back to the big group. Somebody feeds back, you know, what the outcome of your table's discussion was. And then they mix you up again. And you find yourself in a breakout room with 5 different people. So, but it can be, it can be effective. I'm all about in person. I coach eyes, lips, fingers. If you can, the best way to connect is eyeball to eyeball.
This is my vision. I think it's much better, and I prefer in person. But because a few times I was think, because one thing is to obviously attend a webinar or anything else that either 1 or 2 people will talk or have a conversation, but in my head was like, how am I going to go and network? Because I'm not going to lie, very often for me, how you look as well play a big, or how you react, or how you deal with the people, all these things, of course, as well for me, play a vital role if I'm going to go and talk to someone or not. So
it's very important to read, because one of the things you can't do in Teams or Zoom is actually find that spot where you can actually say something, particularly if there's someone talking and there's somebody else talking, because everyone just drowns it out.
Raise hand there,
there is. But when you're in a room and there's like we're having a conversation as we do now, it's very easy to find a break point, or when you can interrupt and you see each other and you're able to interact, and that's one of the things that often is missing, I think.
100%. And human connection comes from a series of shared experiences, and relationships form by those moments in time that you share. And when you turn up at the same networking event month after month after month, you might only have a hello one week. You might have a 2-minute conversation with the person the next week. And the following month, you might actually find yourself sitting together at a table. But somewhere along the line, you formed a relationship. It's like falling in love. It's not a moment. You fall in love with someone because there have been a whole host of moments that have gone before that. And suddenly you feel a certain way, but you can't point out when it happened. And I think over Zoom, you need many more of those moments, because each interaction, it might be for the same amount of time, but it's not as close, because you don't have all of those social cues that you get from body language and eye contact and just feeling relaxed through a camera. But it was good enough to get us through Zoom.
It's really interesting as well, because like I was going back to, obviously you talked earlier about communication with children, and to be fair, it's not just children today, but you very much see today, we talk about people using a phone and messaging each other and texting each other, and it's so often when you go out for a meal and you even see a couple sitting opposite to each other, sitting on their phone, and they could even be messaging each other. And you think to yourself, how does this work? Like, because there's a lack of confidence to actually communicate through verbal communication, and that comes like obviously years ago. The only way we would talk to each other, we'd phone each other up. You'd either go knock on the door and go and say, "Hi, I've come around. Are you busy? Are you doing anything? Can I come around and have a cup of coffee and have a chat?" Or you'd phone them up and say, "Hi, how are you?" And they go, "Oh, I'm ever so busy at the moment. Can you call back later?" Boink. Okay, fine. But like today, it's like, oh well, I didn't call, I didn't chat. So like we just message and like just leave it and sit. But one of the things that I'm sure it must come up all the time, but it's context. If you're messaging someone, sometimes there's very little context, and people misinterpret. And communication is about context.
And I find myself sharing this little top tip or insight with more adults than I do kids, because when kids communicate with each other, they understand each other and they have context because they are of a similar age, or if they're in the same friendship group, and their communication is based on all of the shared experiences that they've had that day at school or while they've been out, and so they can communicate in a way that they understand. What is harder is when adults communicate over a phone, and the thing that they often forget is that a written message will be read in the mood of the reader, not in the mood of the writer. And sometimes countless times, to people go, I don't know why she's got the ump. Look, that's the message that I wrote, clear, and they read it out in this real subtle, are you still okay to meet up with all of this tone that suggests it's, I can't wait. Whereas actually I say, let me read it. And I say, still ready to meet up. And then
well, you don't want to see me then? Oh, have you fallen out with me?
That's not how I meant it. And I'm like, but if that's the mood of the reader, that's how it will come across. So I always encourage people to go back to typing in sentences, voice noting where they can, because at least you can convey tone. Because, are you still okay to meet up? When it's a verbal, they can hear your excitement. They don't have to see or guess whether you're excited or you're hoping they'll cancel.
But when it's written...
But when it's written, you've got no option. And if you catch someone at a bad time, they've had a dreadful day, and they get a short message from you, you're like, seriously? And it sets the whole tone. So I think without context, and also intergeneration, kids understand when they message each other. But what I have had a huge return on the investment of time with my own kids is when they text message their grandparents to thank them for a present, or just to tell them that they're on their way if they're going to see them. I say to them, remember, Nanny and Grandad like whole sentences. So they might just, my daughter might be getting off the bus and going to Nan's house for tea, and she might just want to say, on my way, be there in 5. Because that might be what she'd send to her friend across the road, or what she'd send to me. And I know exactly what she means. But Nan will think that's rude. So I say to her, remember, Nan likes whole sentences. So she will type, hi, Nan, it's Brooke. Just to let you know, I'm on the bus. I'll be with you in 5 minutes. Look forward to seeing you soon. Brooke, kiss. Nanny needs to receive communication in the way that Nanny values. And do you know what? It was eye-opening, because they're like, so much time. And I was like, really? But the habit of communicating in that way, and it really helps. When my son then was applying for jobs, he finished his A-levels last year, and he was applying to Sandhurst and the London Fire Brigade in parallel. And it reminded him to talk in full sentences, because these were people that didn't know him. They'd had no moments of social interaction. They'd got no relationship with him. And so he started his, because a lot of the recruitment process that businesses run now is over WhatsApp or via email. And it was always, good morning, thank you for your message. And then he would impart the information. And it created such a positive impression, because the generation that he was talking to that were recruiting and creating the impression, they needed to receive communication in their way. And so I think one of the things that is a skill is to know that you don't have to just have one style of communication. You can adapt it. When you sense somebody likes the full story, or equally someone can't bear the backstory, just get to the point, that you adapt your communication style to get through that filter so that they get what they need from you. So I think, kids communicating, it's an interesting one. But once they grasp it, they're all over it like a rash. They just never understood. But adults, when you say to them, it's going to be read in the mood of the reader, not the writer, they're like, yeah. And it changes so much, because it reminds them to give context.
It's so important. Yeah, definitely.
Indeed you do. Oh, we could talk all
this
day.
It's been a fascinating
good. That
story.
means you can be a guest again, and we can carry on talking.
Yeah.
Yes, and whoever needs, because I think we all need to improve the communication skills nowadays. Because even, shall I say that or shouldn't I? I don't know.
You should.
When you told me to give a call back to Beth regarding today's.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, oh, okay, I'll message her. And Richard was like, no, she asked if you can call her. I said, no, I can't call her, because obviously I didn't know you that much. And I was like, absolutely
She's going to bite my head off. She's going to chew me up.
So I can call Obviously, I'm working, my job is involved to speak to people. Didn't have a problem, but I don't know, I had that absolutely worry. But Richard was like, I will check. And I was like, okay.
No,
and I call you and you couldn't answer.
No.
And I was like, I waited. I was like,
I got this message. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to answer the phone.
Yeah.
But I had that relief. Like,
But it's a good point, because in realising that I'd made a mistake in double booking myself for our original time to do the podcast, I got 3 options. I can either type you a message, I can voice note you a message, or I can ring you. And I know when an important conversation needs to happen, I am most likely to get a good outcome if I can look someone in the eyes. It did not feel comfortable
just to
message and say, any chance you're free for a quick chat? Because it would have been easier in the short term to just message and say, I'm so sorry, I've miscommunicated a commitment. Is there any chance we could change the time of our podcast? It would have been easier for me because it didn't feel vulnerable, because you might have the ump. You might be horrible to me. You might be like, this is outrageous behaviour. You might think badly. But I knew that it mattered to me, the relationship we had. So I asked you if I could speak to you. And when Richard rang, and I looked you in the eye and said, Richard, I am so sorry. This is what I have done. How can I make this up to you? When else can we do the podcast? And we got a much better outcome than if I'd have emailed you cold and said, sorry, we can no longer make that.
But again, it's another lesson for me as well. And now, talking about that.
And you know what? Someone did it to me the other day, and it really reminded me of the impact, because I was travelling to see somebody who'd said, I'd love to talk to you about helping my team in my company to become better at communicating with each other in team meetings. You know, can we meet for a coffee and you can explain a bit more about how you might be able to help? So we got this bit back and forth over the date. We got the date. I was travelling to him, and then the morning of the appointment, I just got a message, you know, can I call you? And I thought, yeah, of course you can. So I said, yeah, no problem. So he rang me. We had a telephone conversation. He said, I'm so sorry, and it's really late notice, but can we rain check our appointment? And explain the situation. And I thought, you know what? 9 out of 10 people would have just messaged, say, so sorry, something's popped up, and it would have been written. But he bothered to lift the phone up. And that made me feel like I was important in his world. And so now I will be super flexible, more flexible, and I'm even more eager to work with him, because I know his values are properly aligned to my own. But it could have been easy for him to message and he didn't, and I really respect that.
So next time, take the phone and make the call, not just messaging. Lesson taken.
Long-term gain.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. It was incredible, and I'm pretty sure we've got many more to ask and to learn, but we'll take this for another time to come and visit us. Thank you. Once more
Beth,
time.
thank you.
Lots of insights and tips you gave to us and to our audience. And communication is vital. Nowadays, we all need it.
And as always, if you need help with communication and you would like to speak to an expert, don't call us. Please call Beth, because she is amazing.
Or
You'll
you
find
can
the
reach
details.
to us and we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. But please do have a look. We'll put all the links to Beth underneath so you can find her. Beth, thank you so much. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's art of communication, and if you'd like to communicate back to us, please do give us a like. Please do subscribe if you're watching on YouTube.
Yes, and if you want to support us and our project, please check the link, buy me a coffee below. We'll be very much grateful for
We're always
all
thirsty.
your help. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.